What's up, guys? Welcome back to Zilla MMA. I am your host, as always, the Zilla. I want to start this episode, as we always do, by thanking the viewers and asking you to please like and subscribe so we can get more content out for you. Again, as I always say, I really appreciate what you guys are doing, taking time out of your day to watch these videos. I hope it's some content that you guys can really enjoy. So, again, like and subscribe so we can keep that going. Um, I guess we'll go ahead and get right into it. Gonna do a recap of UFC 294. I had a lot right. I had a lot wrong. It just was kind of a mess of a card. Some stuff that, if you've listened to my other videos, was pretty upsetting to me. Some things that I was hoping would not happen did happen in this card, and I'm going to have to admit to the places where I was wrong, and we'll move forward, and that's just the way it's gonna be. I'm gonna do this one a little less structured than the couple I've done in the past. I'm just gonna talk about the stuff from this card that I really want to talk about. I do want to talk about this first fight though. Bullet just as impressive with his kicks and everything as we had anticipated. Seemed to leave himself open to some stuff when he kind of overextended when he got into situations where he thought he might be able to get the finish, left himself open to takedowns. There's a lot of holes in his game. He's not completely polished yet, but the kicks were everything that they lived up to everything that we thought they were supposed to be. Bruno Silva, obviously a very tough opponent for your debut in the UFC, who held his own in that fight, but yeah, Bullet was everything that I wanted to see from him. I thought it was a really cool fight, so that one was good. Dudakova in the next fight, if you've heard, had a bad staph infection. Apparently, staph going around with a bunch of the fighters here to the point where she was bleeding from the staph infection. It had been hidden from the commission out there. Apparently, a few fighters had gotten it past the commission, which is just the beginning of the shit show that this card was, where it seems like Abu Dhabi is just a complete mess. And the UFC is willing to take any amount of money to have fights over there, and because of that, sometimes we're going to get this diminished product that we got on this card. Um, and obviously, we'll get more into the reasons I feel that way as we get further into this card. Not much to say about the Nathaniel Wood fight. He had his opportunities there, but obviously got taken down, and Muhammad really did a good job of adapting and making the fight he wanted to fight. So yeah, not a ton to say about that one. The Jubilee Breeden fight, just absolutely wild. This is probably the place I was the most wrong to in a sense. I thought Jubilee was a really good fighter. I thought this was a smash spot for him. And for 2 rounds, it kind of seemed that way. He fought his fight. He was the better fighter by far. Looked really good, and somehow Breeden comes out in that. Also, Breeden had this cut over his eye before the fight even started. Entire situation was kind of weird. He'd missed weight, um, so a lot of weird stuff with Breeden. Coming in this third round, though, he just comes out like a crazy man. Comes out barking at Jubilee, just acting an absolute fool. And it seems like it really phased Jubilee. Like he seemed legitimately like he hadn't faced something like this before. He didn't know how to deal with the way that he was behaving, and ended up getting himself caught, taken out of this fight, and he lost because of it. And it's really disappointing to see that. He just needed to get through that round to be able to win this fight, and he couldn't do it. And so credit to Mike Breeden keeping himself in there, doing that, proving me wrong. Just shocking from someone who's getting in the octagon to fight that they can get phased by something like that at this stage in their career to me. But yeah, apparently it still happens. Disappointing for me as far as my bets go regarding that fight, but a lot of people were on Breeden as a dog in that spot, and I can see why now. Dumas, good fight there for him. Not a ton to say about that one as well. Just because right after that fight is when the real chaos of this card began in the Basharat Henry fight, where Henry took what appears to have been a low blow it was on the fence, I suppose. I initially did not think that he had taken a low blow seeing the replays. However, the doctor in this event came in and was letting Victor Henry know that it was not a low blow, which was just a really, really weird move if you saw it. Just came in and was definitively telling him, no, it didn't hit you low. You didn't get hit low. Um, I think the first person who would know would be Victor Henry. Now, could he have been playing it up and faking it? Sure. But how are you going to come in as the doctor and tell him that? One thing for the ref of the fight to be telling you that, that's not the doctor's place. This was the first sign that I got that something really wasn't right with this doctor. Obviously, if you saw the fights, there's more to come with that. But Henry ends up not being able to continue, which was odd to me. I think he got grazed at worst from what we could see, but the kind of pain that he seemed to be displaying that he was in, I'm not even going to question something like that. So, yeah, I'll just assume that the blow caught him in a way that was not easy to pick up in the footage that we had, and unfortunately, that fight ended as a no contest. Next fight, Trevor Peek just put it on Yaya as we expected. He was a guy that got brought in just for this event because the UAE got to bring in, or I'm sorry, Abu Dhabi got to bring in one of their own guys. Doesn't really belong on this level. Peek kind of piecing him up. Not a bad fight here. My big dog pick on this card was Tim Elliott, who I thought fought a really good fight. Makhachev just doesn't do anything except get opponents on the ground. Once they're there, he has no interest in finishing it. He has no real game plan of where he's going from there. He just can get fighters to the ground and hold them there. And for once, in my opinion, I can't speak for everyone, but in my opinion, we got the correct kind of UFC judging on this card. Those of you who looked, and this is the real disappointing thing with this, Makhachev ended up getting the submission in the third round. Tim Elliott won the first two rounds according to these judges because Makhachev is just getting on top of him and laying there. He's not doing any damage. Tim Elliott is the only fighter in this fight doing damage. And so why are we scoring these rounds for Makhachev? Why is this something that the UFC has done for so long? Give rounds to guys for just holding opponents down. That's not winning a fight. If this is a fight in the street, just holding them there, you're just delaying the inevitable. You're not doing anything to end the fight. And so I'm really glad that judges are starting to recognize that. That was a very positive thing I saw from this fight. Unfortunately, Tim Elliott did get finished in the third round, and so we were wrong on that pick, but had the correct reasoning from what I saw. Tim Elliott was the one threatening to finish. He used his own takedowns. He was able to prevent a lot of Makhachev's takedowns, as I had said in my analysis video. So that one was good. Nurmagomedov, Saeed Nurmagomedov. Another reason I don't like these people, I can't pronounce all their names. Nurmagomedov, just as I had said, got the early finish. To say I don't like these people, there was just a sect of these Russian fighters that I don't like how they operate. I want to clarify that, but so I actually do kind of like Saeed. I like his game. He is not the wrestle, hold you down, not do anything, use this absurd strength. That's not really how he fights. He's got a style where his striking plays a part. His submission game is very impressive, even on the feet. I really like his game, and I was very impressed with this fight yet again, and I'm glad he was able to get out of here with the win. Oliskarov, obviously the real deal, got in there, got his knockout in this fight, as we predicted in that one as well. The next one, probably the wildest fight of the card, the Magomed Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker fight. And I just can't even put into words how absurd it is that something like this happened. So I assume most who would watch this have seen it, but Ankalaev lands what is an illegal knee on Johnny Walker while he is a downed opponent. Um, and the fact they ruled this as inadvertent as accidental is odd, because as much as I was on Ankalaev, as much as I wanted Ankalaev to win this fight, it was clearly not accidental. I guess it was accidental to hit him while he was downed, but the shot itself wasn't accidental. So in the way I understand the rules, this probably should have been a DQ victory for Johnny Walker if Johnny Walker wasn't able to continue, which the doctor who made the mistake earlier in this card determined that he was not. And this is because he asked Johnny Walker what country he was in. Johnny Walker then did not want to misspeak. He knew he was in Abu Dhabi, but he doesn't really know the politics of the region, doesn't know what country that they necessarily identify as, doesn't want to make a mistake, gives a sarcastic answer of him being in the desert. The doctor determines that he doesn't know where he is and stops the fight, in which still seems to be somewhat of a language barrier at that point. Johnny Walker doesn't realize the fight's been stopped. He tries to continue fighting. He's told the fight has been stopped. Then he gets angry. Then he tries to continue the fight, as does Ankalaev, while people are trying to restrain them and stop the fight from happening. Dana White ends up having to come into the octagon to settle all this chaos. I just don't see anything like this occurring if this fight is not in Abu Dhabi. Just these fights over there are becoming more and more of a mess, in my opinion. And it's not just the things with this doctor. It's not just the things with the staph infections that these fighters came in with, which can be life-threatening. It's a danger to the fighters. It's not something to mess around with. And the fact that these people are able to circumvent the system and be able to fight. And honestly, I don't even really blame the fighters that much, because this is their job. They're trying to go out there. They're trying to earn money. They don't want to cancel fights. It's not a good look for your standing in the UFC. They're trying to go out and do their jobs. The commissions have a job, and it's to tell fighters when they aren't in the condition to fight. And they're not doing it over there. There is no real commission over there. It's basically the UFC says what goes, and what they don't catch, they don't catch. And it's unfortunate. And on top of that, I have a big issue with what happened in this co-main event and this main event. Not with the people who won, actually, believe it or not. As much as I don't support those two fighters, I don't have an issue with them as fighters. So we'll start in the co-main. Back and forth fight. Chimaev apparently broke his wrist in the first round. I haven't heard if that's confirmed or not yet. He believed he had broken his wrist in the first round. Very dominant first round. I scored a 10-8 to Chimaev. Second and third, I actually gave the edge to Usman. In my opinion, I thought this was a draw, just based on the way that the other fights on this card had been scored up to this point. It's, I believe it ended up a majority decision for Chimaev in this spot. Yes, it did. And I can't disagree with it. I mean, I had it as a draw. I understand people who had it for Chimaev. It certainly was not for Usman. It was working towards Usman. If this had been a 5-round fight, I think Kamaru probably pulls this off. But Chimaev goes out there and gets the win. He does exactly what his game plan was. He's not able to be as active as he might have wanted to be in the second and third. Gas tank may have been an issue, as we anticipated it might be. But in that first round, he did everything we anticipated he would do. It was very dominant, and I have to give him credit for what he did. He has earned the next title fight in the eyes of Dana White. I think I would like to see Duplessis get his opportunity. I think he's done more than enough to earn it. It's disappointing to me that he's going to get jumped over. But Dana felt the need to get this fight done, and so he made that promise to these fighters to make sure that this fight got done. If Chimaev is indeed injured and is not able to go soon, I would hope that Dana would get over the issues he has with Duplessis and give him the spot that he deserves. But we'll see what happens with that. But really, in all honesty, credit to Chimaev here. He's a fantastic mixed martial artist. I was very impressed with what I saw from him, and there's no denying that. And then we get to the main event. Not very long. Islam is able to land the head kick on Volkanovski that ends the fight. Gets some ground and pound after the fact. Makhachev looks very dominant in this spot. And I want to talk about both of these fighters for a minute. I'll talk about Volkanovski first. It was very sad to see what I saw in the post-fight press conference from Volkanovski. How he feels he's having some personal issues, going through some mental health issues that are very difficult for me to see from him as a fighter that I love to watch, that has done so much positively in my life as seeing him as an entertainer and looking up to what he's doing. And it's very upsetting for me to see everything he's going through, and I feel for him, and I hope he can get the help he needs. He felt that he needed to step into this spot to get his mind off the issues he's having outside of the octagon mentally. He took a fight when he had clearly not had the training he needed leading up to it, both because of injury and because of it being short notice. Not an active injury, but being injured and not being able to have a full camp coming back in. Very clearly, if you saw him, did not look in his best physical condition. Not even close, really. And I hate that both this fight and the Usman fight got shoved into this card because the UFC feels an obligation to Abu Dhabi to put on these big fights because it's where they're getting all their money. There were people like Gamrot who were ready to step in, who had been scheduled as a replacement for this fight that Dana decided was not good enough for this card and put in these two fighters and took two fights that I think could have been amazing fights with a full camp for these fighters. And unfortunately, we'll never get to see that. I find it very unlikely Volkanovski will ever fight Makhachev again after this. It doesn't make sense to me to give it to him again, at least not anytime soon. I don't know what's going to be next for Kamaru Usman. He seemed pretty broken up about what happened here as well. It's upsetting that these fighters were put in this spot. I don't think it was necessary. I think we could have put in the fighters who were ready to step into these spots. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And so I'm hoping Volkanovski can get the help he needs. I think it would be smart of the UFC to step in and make sure that he is mentally well before just scheduling this fight for him in January with Topuria, just because he wants to stay active, because he wants to get his mind off the issues he's having. I don't think going into an octagon where you're putting your life on the line is necessarily a positive way to fight these demons, and the UFC needs to make sure that he is taking all other measures to do that before putting him in this spot, in my opinion. And then finally, I'll take a minute and talk about Islam Makhachev. There's no denying how great he looked in this spot. I'm actually very happy for him. He put on a very impressive fight. And at this point, in my opinion, I see him as leaps and bounds better than anything that Khabib ever did. Khabib did not have this striking arsenal. Khabib would not have landed that kick. He could not have done anything like that. He is so much more well-rounded. He's not dodging opponents. He's fighting the top guys that Dana will bring to him. And as much as I talk shit about their camp and the way they run things a lot of the time, there's no denying what he's accomplished at this point. And for those reasons, I've got to give credit to Islam here. He put on a great performance, and was a great main event on this card, and he has a lot to be proud of here. And as much as I have, like I said, I've talked bad about that camp and everything, there's no denying what he's done in the UFC at this point. I personally find him to be the most dominant fighter at 155 that I've ever seen. I don't think I've seen anyone better. And that might bother some people for me to say. It bothers me even a little bit, but it's the truth. And I hope he continues to put on great fights. I hope we eventually get Oliveira. I think there's some other guys in line who are interesting, but I look forward to seeing what's next for him. But yeah, that's the card, guys. A lot coming out of it, a lot of emotions coming out of it, in my opinion, from all over the spectrum. This was a really big card for the UFC. This set in stone a lot of the direction that we're going to be going forward from here, and I just can't wait to see where we go with it. So this week, guys, look for my prediction videos for the fight night on Wednesday. We're probably going to be going back to a schedule around that going forward up until the next big pay-per-view. And other than that, I really appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. Leave some comments about what you thought about the card, and we'll see you next time.